I guess my audio was off. You couldn't hear me. So I've been talking to myself for so long. I am so sorry about that. So I'm going to kind of go and start over again. So what I said so eloquently, and it won't be that much there, is that before we bring Ronnie on, is to thank all of you. I think we've got 5 or 6 countries all dialing in here, but to thank all of you for joining me. But before we have fun, we're going to drink some wine. We're going to get a beer, grab yourself a glass of wine, a whiskey, a scotch, whatever is your vice. It's 2:00 here in California, so it's a bit early, but it's 5:00 somewhere where you guys are dialing in from New Jersey, I saw, and onward. But anyway, the thing I was saying before we bring Ronnie on is this is unprecedented. All of us kind of locked up. My idea of doing this Journeys webcast live stream came up about a couple weeks ago, talking to some friends, and they all cheered me on and said, you got to do it. And actually the day after I thought of this and started thinking, how am I going to pull it off? I get an email notifying that my friend and another TV host and a travel expert, Rudy Maxa, Travels with Rudy Maxa, used to be the Savvy Traveler. He started one, and I think he's tuned in, actually. Rudy, you're here. I know you are. And I want to have Rudy in on as a guest there. But so he started doing one, bringing in people from his more than 30 years of doing a radio show, a TV show, and that. So this is my attempt, because I was saying the beauty of traveling, I can't stand still. I've been to 80 some odd countries at this point. And to be locked up in my house is tough. But, it's not so much about the places that I travel that's important to me. Frankly, it's about the faces, I guess, if I can use a rhyme. Or really, it's about the people. It's amazing. I noticed as I was watching the chat when the video played that Elena is somebody I met in Moldova. She actually does a walking tour. She works with the tourist board there. And we had a great afternoon walking around. And thank you, Elena, for coming in. Thank you, all of you. But it's so cool to see people from Moldova, Romania, Slovenia, New Zealand, Australia, and California join us. And just one more thing before we get going. And I know, as we said, this is unprecedented, that we take a moment and really, applaud and thank the people that are able to work, that are the healthcare professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the staff in the hospitals and doctors' offices. Thank you for the grocery workers, for the delivery people. It's incredible that everybody is putting themselves at risk, and I have to every day remind myself how lucky we are. We have people that we can do, even in this lockdown state. We can still get food. We can still, for the most part, get medical attention. And frankly, we can, operate and live and even get a bottle of wine. I understand New Jersey's governor did say that it is an essential service, that liquor stores are bottle shops. So good for New Jersey. Anyway, and then the last thing I wanted to say, there's so many. My favorite bistro, my favorite restaurant here in town is closed down. They're offering takeout. I'm not a big takeout guy because I love to cook at home. But when I want to go out, I want to sit down and have that experience, chat with the service staff, chat with the sommelier if they've got one, and talk about that. And in this case, we just can't do it. But I think it's important for all of us to support those places that we usually go to and can't right now, by maybe buying a gift card or doing a ticket takeout. And this is not just restaurants. This is salons, boutiques. All of them are trying with all their might to keep their staff employed and to keep people working and to keep their businesses open so that they can be prosperous when that comes back. So enough of the serious, but it's true. Ronnie Borrageiro, South African, he's joining us. You can turn on your microphone right now. And I wanted to, or your camera too. Are you on there? There we go. Ronnie.
Hey. Howdy, brother.
Doing well. Doing well.
Good to see you.
So you have to. I met Ronnie in Namibia. Namibia is it used to be called what? Southwest Africa.
Southwest Africa.
Before it was independent, became independent. But Ronnie, I met at a BMW dealership while I was trying to figure out something in my bike, and he was a bit down and out. I will tell you, he was a bit down and out. And Ronnie appears in my book Forks. Okay, he actually is in a chapter. And Ronnie, could I just read the little section? Do a quick little poetry
sure.
reading. Let me pull that up, and I want to so you guys can really understand a little bit about how we and our friendship began, and what ultimately resulted in this guy. He's been to so many more countries than I have on his motorcycle, and we're going to get into that soon. But so here it is. I'm going to read from Forks. It's in the Malawi chapter, okay? Because this is although we met in Namibia, it says, okay, it starts breaking bread under the baobab, and we're going to get to that too. The rain pounded all night on the corrugated roof of my Zambian motel room, washed clay all over the road, making it slippery and dangerous. I must be careful and ride slowly to the Malawian border through many small villages of round huts. Now, at the border, Zambian officials will let me out of the country only after I show them a paper, soggy from the rain, that proves I paid my carbon tax. With more papers, rubber stamping, and pats on my back, I wave goodbye to Zambia and roll into Malawi. Here, I rendezvous with a fellow motorcyclist from South Africa, Ronnie B, as I call him. He's riding to Tanzania and then back to South Africa. I met Ronnie a month ago in Namibia, where we spent some time together until he moved on to join his friends who live here in Malawi. Motorcycling is new to Ronnie. He bought the bike so that he could take this trip and have time to think about his life. He admits he's angry and bitter that his wife is divorcing him and taking their 2 children to England. My self-deprecating sense of humor, openness to people, well-practiced patience, and curiosity present quite the contrast to Ronnie's often frustrated, impatient, and indifferent demeanor. Born and raised in South Africa, I find Ronnie to be a bit jaded and with a cynical view of the continent. That's why he enjoys my company. He tells me I need to rub off on him. I agree, and I remind him often. Ronnie says that I ride just a little bit too slow. I tell him he rides too fast and that he misses the world he passes by. He complains that I talk to way too many people. I'm not going to go on, but that's from the Malawi chapter and a little bit about Ronnie. So I'm going to stop, and I want you to first of all, tell everybody how South Africa is doing under this lockdown and what you're doing to kind of pass the time and live.
Well, first, just to echo your shout out to all the healthcare professionals that are out there that are battling around the world and fighting this virus. So yeah, kudos to them, and much respect from me. And I'm sure a lot of people in South Africa will echo that, and around the world. Yeah, we've been on lockdown now for 17 days, 18 days. We have another 17 to go. So we have a 5-week total shutdown here, where we're only allowed to go out for groceries. Bottle stores are closed. It'll be sad to hear. But for the rest of it, only essential services are allowed to leave your home for essential services.
What are essential services in South Africa? I mean, yeah.
Anyone that's selling food, producing food, keeping fuel in the petrol stations, but all restaurants, small businesses are closed. Yeah, there's just the entire service industry, anything related to tourism, obviously, is shut down. And yeah, the country's in total lockdown until probably the 1st or 2nd of May.
Mm-hmm. So let's, what I want to do is where are you exactly in South Africa? Is there? I think we might have a map here that we could pull up to let people know where you are. What's the name of the town?
I'm in a little town called Hoedspruit. It's on the edge of the Kruger National Park, and it's in the province of Limpopo. And I think you'll probably know where Nelspruit is from your travels in South Africa. It's about 200 kilometers directly north of Nelspruit. Okay.
So I've got the map here, and unfortunately, you can't see all of South Africa due to I can't get this anyway. But where Ronnie is, okay, I'm going to go ahead and circle Nelspruit. It's up in the northeastern part, but he is straight north, probably about here. Did I do that right?
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so that's that's where he's dialing in. So anyway, so let's get back to Namibia for a second and share that story, because I think it begins a long string of events that are coordinated, but nobody could see from way back then.
Absolutely. I mean, I met you in Windhoek, as I recall, at that BMW dealership. I was going in for my very first service because it was a very new bike, and you pulled in on dock, and it was making a terrible racket. I remember I could hear you long before I could see you, and you arrived, and that's where we met. And I think you'd already booked into another B&B because we weren't staying at the same place.
No.
But that's right. And we rendezvoused later that evening. I think we had a meal together and hit it off immediately, as I recall.
That's right. That's right. We had a meal at that. There's a restaurant, a famous restaurant in Windhoek. I don't remember the name, but they're famous for serving just about every type of game that you can find in Africa. So it's a carnivore's delight, but a vegetarian's, nightmare. Yeah. But as you as we agreed to then continue, I was on my way to Botswana. Talk a little bit about the what was happening in your life and where you felt that contrast and the rubbing off needed to happen.
Well, you're right in saying I was a little bit of a, I was in a bit of a funk, to be honest with you. I mean, I was in the throes of a divorce, and my wife was going to be moving abroad. And I was at more than a loose end, to be honest with you. I wasn't quite sure what the future held for me. And I just wanted to be alone, I think. And I set out just to ride around the outer borders of South Africa. I had no intention of leaving the country, but for some reason, I actually had my passport with me. And I was visiting friends near the Namibian border. And I just got a sort of a bee in my bonnet. I knew Namibia very well. I'd spent much of my childhood there. My dad did construction work there, and we used to go up during school holidays. And fell in love with the country. It is really a stark and beautiful place. And I decided to drive across the border and up to Windhoek and to Swakopmund, and I was just going to come down through Botswana. So when I met you and you were going up, I don't think you actually had your route wasn't directly into Botswana. I think I suggested we go up north and into the Caprivi, because that's where I did some of my military service, and I knew that area quite well. And I think we just decided. My
attitude when I travel is always no itinerary, so I'm making it up as I go on.
Yes, you do. Where I'm the exact opposite. I know exactly where I'm going to be in 6 days' time.
So you were, you never had a motorcycle before, or if you had, it was not.
I hadn't. I'd had one for a short space of time. The big BMW, the 1200 that I had that you met me on, was relatively new. I think I'd only had it for about 4 or 5 months.
Oh yeah, it hardly had any miles on it. Didn't even have 1,000 kilometers, I think.
Yeah, I was going in for its first service. Yeah, that's why I went to that BMW garage. Yeah. So
your wife's leaving you. The kids are going to be gone. You decide to go out. I mean, it sounds like a midlife crisis going out of control. So you hop on a motorcycle, but you're not going to go out of South Africa, but somehow you end up in Namibia, and then you decide to you convince me to go into Botswana, and you were going to go from Botswana back to South Africa, correct?
That's right, yeah. And we took a long route up into the Caprivi, and we'd been spending a few days together by then, and obviously we enjoyed each other's company, and I think we were a perfect foil for each other, to be honest with you. I mean, we both enjoy talking to people, but we have different ways of doing it, obviously. And I just remember when we got to Maun, we spent a few days there. It had been raining, and at that point, I made up my mind. There was no rush to get back to South Africa, and I think I just said, "I'll tag along with you and see where this journey takes us."
So, and Maun, by the way, for those, is one of the probably the second city of Botswana. It sits at the edge of the Okavango Delta there.
And it's the safari capital. All the safaris kick off from Maun. So
yeah. So you decided to tag along, but at some point, I guess you had some friends in Malawi, and we did split up.
Livingston.
Yeah,
You stayed behind in Livingston to do something, and I think I'd arranged to meet them at a certain date because we were going to go down to the lake. They were going on a long weekend at the lake or so, and I wanted to get there before. So I rode on ahead. I rode from Livingston through almost the length of Zambia into Malawi, and came back to fetch you about a week later, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it was we did deal with a lot of rain, and I want to come back to that. But let's come back to one of the things, always toting the camera, always seeing things on the side of the road, my curiosity just going crazy. This really frustrated you, didn't it?
It certainly did. In the beginning, for me, it was not. Remember, I never set out with the same agenda that you had. I mean, you wanted to meet people and things. I just wanted to put as much distance between myself and what I was coming from, and just wanting to ride. And I didn't need to stop and talk to people. I just wanted to be alone with my own thoughts inside my helmet and just go. And when we started off in the morning and we said we're going to get to a spot on the map, that's where I headed. And for me, there was nothing in between. It was just getting there. Whereas you, I mean, you'd pull off the road for anything to take a photograph or talk.
So in terms of weather and rain, and combined with my, one thing I have to say, even though I had practiced patience and I'd already been on the road almost 2 years at that point, and you'd only been on the road for 2 weeks, more or less, if that, yes. Right?
Yeah, that's about right.
So as I queue up, I'm going to queue up a little video. I want you to tell us that how a guy who never owned a motorcycle, hardly, right, bought one after this obviously major life changes, and you run into me, who's crazy wandering around with no itinerary, which is totally the contrast to you, which is very, I guess, you're a military trained South African, by the book. That eventually you came about an idea to go on your own kind of trip years later. How did this, what's the genesis of that? 2 weeks, you meet me, we travel, and then, 2 years later, you decide, I'm going to take off.
Well, actually, the inspiration for it was being with you, to be honest. And it wasn't just after 2 weeks. I think it was after another 4 weeks where we got through Malawi, and we overcome some tough hurdles from both riding, weather, and we did that together. And I think we built that camaraderie. And I kept thinking to myself that your sense of wanderlust, I think it was always there with me, but you sort of triggered it for me. And I did lots of travel in my business life. I traveled on most continents except South America, I think. But I wanted to travel, but this traveling on the motorcycle with you really got to me. And I thought to myself, this is the way to do a long distance travel. And so all the inspiration to do the travel came from you. You made me believe on that little trip. You made me believe that I could do it, and I could do it alone, because I knew that I was never going to find someone to ride around the world with me. People just aren't able to do that. So I was going to have to do it alone. And reading some of your blog and being with you for those few weeks actually inspired me to later on, when my divorce had come through, and I'd actually, after a year of being basically on my own in South Africa, I decided that it was time to call it quits and do this thing before I got too old to do it, to be honest. So right. I actually left on my trip. I was 45 at that stage. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I better get this done before I turn 50 for some reason. And that's what got me going.
I'm going to play a bit of a video to kind of show people watching out there how, a little bit about maybe that not only could frustrate you, could frustrate anybody. I like to stop and just talk to the most random people in the world, whether it's somebody carrying a big chunk of charcoal, as you know, they do all over Africa, to, a roadside stand where they're, selling coffee or something like this, big bundles of that. So this is actually shot. Ronnie is the videographer on that. One thing I did love when Ronnie came and started to join me is I never could get any pictures. Not that I need pictures of me, but I love taking pictures of people. But every once in a while, there's a photo of me on the bike. Trying to get shots was tough. So Ronnie, even though he's like, "Don't you dare stop again," amused me and would use would take some video. So watch this, and we'll talk about this at the other end. So just stick with me. I might not be perfect, but I'm gonna do the best I can. Okay? Okay.
Alan, what's up?
Listen, we're right off the shores of Lake Malawi on our way to Nakatikata. Stopped here in this little village. What's this village called? What's this village? What is it? The village. The village. Name. We're in Chantro Village here, just outside. Behind me is a baobab tree. These are very famous. Are there a lot of these trees around here? You have many trees like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever chop them down? No. So we don't actually chop down the baobab trees here, but you can see it's a massive trunk. They don't grow real tall, but they grow real wide. We've been riding for about 35 kilometers on a sandy dirt track that took us from a little resort back on
Club Macacola
Club Macacola,
and Monkey Bay.
And we passed through Monkey Bay. We're on our way to Nakatikata. I stopped here to meet some of my friends I haven't talked to in a long time. You can see they've joined me here under the baobab tree, and we're hoping that we can still make Nakatikata before nightfall. But the road's been okay. There's a lot of people walking to the market. You're going to the market today, right? This guy right here is going to the market. And what are you gonna do at the market? We're gonna get cigars?
Oh, you want to buy a soap?
A soap?
A cake of soap.
Oh, he's gonna buy a cake of soap. Okay, to clean your hands? Okay, so he wants to buy a cake of soap. Now around here they don't have a lot of running water, so they'll use the lake to clean. Is this where we clean, in the lake?
Okay.
Yes? And what are you doing today? Yeah, what do you do today? Okay, we won't play the whole thing, but you kind of get the idea. So, Ronnie, how did this come about, and what inspired you to start filming?
Well, I was just gritting my teeth just watching that again. But yeah, I think a lot of the people that we met. I mean, I started slowly but surely, buying into what you were doing, to be honest with you, and started actually enjoying the chit chat with the people, because I mean, yeah, as you can see from that clip, I mean, we joke and laugh and try to bring out, those guys live a very difficult life out there, and to see someone like you and I arrive, it's almost like we're out of space, and to watch the wonder that they look at us with, I think it was worthwhile stopping and actually filming that. For me, while I was actually filming you speaking to them, I was watching the children all around you, and they were just, I mean, wide-eyed. And I think it made me realize that we had such a privileged position that we had these big bikes, expensive pieces of machinery, and we were actually able to go out and ride for no reason but for the pleasure of it.
Exactly, and what I think is in one of the great things to traveling overland and by motorcycle, and I always say this, is is you are able to stop and see the places in between. A lot of people that might go tour, do a safari in Africa, they go on these very high, expensive excursions. They've got drivers, they've got guards with guns often, not for the wild animals, and things like this. And these people on the side of the road see these buses packed with white faces all the time. Whoever stops and actually, engages with them, it's
interacts,
it's rare, or a possible aid worker, or from an NGO, and that's the interaction they have from an NGO, or they just see people driving by. So for me, it's always this is what's so rich about travel, is doing that. Hey, we're already into this thing so much, and we've got to get deeper into your trip here. But I'm a little parched. I don't know about you. I think everybody out there's already, I can see in our chat room, people are, say it's never too early to drink. We've got you got a drink? You got something? I've got a South African wine. This is Iona. It's a Pinot Noir from the western part of South Africa, south of Cape Town, in a region called Elgin, right? What's Elgin all about? I'm going to pop this, and then you get yourself a drink, Ronnie. I feel like
Elgin's all about apples.
What time is it out there?
Yeah, it's 25 to midnight. I also have a bottle of wine from Spear. You went to Spear?
Nice.
Pinotage, okay, South African Pinotage. We've got, you've been to Spear. Thankfully, we didn't go together.
The Pinotage is kind of the signature grape, right?
Absolutely.
South
African is built on.
I know we've got some people from Slovenia. I do want to say that this corkscrew is from Movia, which is in Brda, Gorica Brda area of Slovenia. They gave me this amazing winery. Aleš Kristančić is the winemaker. He is a crazy man, but they call him the guru. So I don't have a Pinotage. My South African wine possibilities during the lockdown are tough, but here's to South Africa, and I hope everybody out there, let's do a toast. Ronnie, you got your glass?
Absolutely.
I love it. Okay. Cheers, buddy.
And to you. All the best. Good to see you again.
Oh, this is so good. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about Malawi. There's another video I want to show about how dangerous the roads can be, and then I want to move right into your trip, because you. So Ronnie made a decision to go around the world, but before he did that, being the South African and very methodical, he wanted to make sure he knew exactly what he was going to do, and tell the story about the maps, and then eventually visiting Southern California while I queue up the video.
Okay, so I think about a year after we got back from my trip up to Tanzania with you, I'd resigned from all of my positions at the various places that I worked in South Africa, and I took a contract job up in West Africa, in Ghana. Before I left there, I went to all the map shops in South Africa and the places that sold magazines and things, and got maps of every single continent. And I took them with me because I was going to use the time. I was up on the Ivory Coast border. The nearest European for me was, I think, about 100 kilometers away. It was just, I was on my own in the jungle, and we were felling trees and making like really high-end garden furniture, which we exported all around the world. But in all my spare time, I had these maps strewn around the lounge floor of the house that I stayed in, and I had them put out exactly as the world was laid out, and I could walk across the world basically and follow the tour I was going to be making. Yeah, and I could see where I was going to be. So I planned it that way.
This is going to be a little bit of a clip, and this will be the last thing we're going to talk about in Malawi. But I love this because it shows you that when you're riding, in this case, I wasn't riding alone. Ronnie was with me, but we're in these situations where the roads can be gnarly, and you you might end up at a place you wonder if you could ever get out of, because you could get washed in. And in this case, we're camped on the side of Lake Malawi, and it's been raining for days, and we want to get to Tanzania. We can't get to Tanzania because the road is pretty much washed out. Finally, when the rains settle a bit, we have a choice to make, and that is, can we ride up this steep, gnarly hill without crashing our motorcycles and just sliding down? And the hill looks a lot steeper. The hill is a lot steeper than it looks in this video. So bear with me, because I'm gonna have to cue it in here. We're not gonna play this lodge.
I mean, what was it?
How long has that?
I wasn't sure until today.
Yeah.
I thought I still needed a bit of practice, but I think getting it down that road into this lodge, we've qualified.
I mean, what was it? How long has that road been in this bad shape here?
It has been for many decades, in fact, for many years.
Many years.
Yeah. Till up to now, you see it is still in poor condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been for, I can say, since it was been made for the people to use it. It has been in bad condition. It's more especially when it rains.
Okay, this is a treacherous, steep slope. It doesn't look so much on the film, but we're not sure exactly if Ronnie's going to make it. He says he wants to go up the slippery part, but I think he needs to go up the rocks.
A big machine. Got like 4 people pushing them. Double take on that little clay area, but we were trying to convince you to go down the rocks where the water was streaming down. You finally chose that line. What were you thinking?
Well, I was just trying to get as much grip as possible, but I think if I didn't have the advice, I'd have tried the slippery line. But anyway, it worked out, but it was air racing.
Yeah, no, you couldn't go the slippery line. I'm glad you didn't. I heard you talking about it. Thank God these guys helped us out here. Good job, guys. Okay. What do you think of this road?
I think for now everything.
Bring back memories, huh?
Yeah. The big fella and I were both learning together there. Years later, I would have done that without a problem. But right there with a newish bike, I was terrified. Let me tell you.
Oh man. Okay, so you go from Ghana to having the world laid out on the floor of your apartment there, to visiting me in Southern California with more maps and talking about. I had been back at that point for just about a year, maybe a year and a half from my trip. And you were just beginning to plan your trip. And I'm going to pull up a slide here that's going to show where you actually went. Now, Ronnie went to over 100 countries, 100,000 miles. And you can see on his Google Maps, these are all the places. From New Zealand, all around circumnavigating Africa, all the way up to Nordkap to the bottom, and onward. You had some goals before doing this, and I think it's important in this era of lockdown, while people can start dreaming, they don't have to just stop their lives. You had dreams.
Absolutely. I think once after visiting you in California, and I spent, I think, a week with you, and I remember keep saying to you, Alan, do you think I can do this? Now, we'd only ridden together for 3 or 4 weeks, really. And based on all of that, what you knew about me, you had to, and you gave me the confidence, and you said, of course you can do it. So I went back with renewed confidence, and I said about, putting some goals down, because I think you know me well enough by now. There had to be something to it. It wasn't just to get away, which I wanted to do. I wanted to be on my own. I wanted to leave the life behind me that I had lived, and the only way that I saw to do that was to to keep riding and looking for new places and get as far away as possible. Almost, running for myself a little bit. But anyway, I set myself some goals. I wanted to visit 100 countries at minimum, and I managed to do 104 in the end. I wanted to do the northern and southern tips of every continent. Maybe I couldn't do Asia, but I managed to do the others. I wanted to ride on all the continents and get to Antarctica if I could, and I didn't end up going there. I wanted to swim in all 5 oceans. And there was a long bucket list of all the sort of famous places. I'm quite interested in history and ancient history, and I wanted to go and stand on those ancient sites. So that was part of what I wanted to do. So I set myself that target, and by and large, I've achieved just about everything on that list.
Okay. So the real magic happens. So you wanted to get as far away from people, and as you said, maybe far away from yourself. And I always like to say, for one of my Alan Carl phrases I like to say is that in order to find yourself, you first have to get lost. And in many ways, that's kind of what you need to do. That's why I have no itinerary. Although with all these GPSs anymore, we rely on them. But you, we saw the map. You've been crazy places all over the world. Some magic happened to you, even though you wanted to get away from people. You ended up. You're married now again, right? I mean, you started this thing. You were divorced and angry and but now you're married. And Patricia is on, by the way. I know she's watching us today. Tell the story, first of all, where you met her, and then just back it up a bit to say how you ended up actually getting to meet her. This is the eat, pray, love, the real thing. I mean, this is the
real deal. The male version. I seriously saw off women. I mean, I love them as friends and things, and I was just deciding that I wanted to live my life and be on my own as much as I could. And on my travels, I was in this. The story actually goes back, very serendipitous. It goes back to Cyprus. I was stuck in Cyprus because of a ferry problem. There was a strike, and the ferry workers weren't taking people from Cyprus back to the Turkish mainland. And I met a Dutch couple there that had been riding around the Middle East in their Land Rover, and they knew where I was heading, and they said, "If you're going to Syria, are you going to Palmyra?" And I said, I didn't even know where Palmyra was. It wasn't on my radar at all.
This wasn't one of the historical sites that you knew about.
Exactly. Well, it was so off limits. It's out in the desert towards the Iraqi border, and it's not on a typical tourist guide. You'll probably find a little mention about it, but people don't generally go there. So
and explain what Palmyra is, just so people have some context here.
So Palmyra was on the old Silk Road. So and it was the Romans built an outpost there. So you have these magnificent Roman ruins.
Yes.
They were visited by the likes of Julius Caesar and other very important Romans of the time. And they painted such a wonderful picture about the citadel on the hill and tombs out in the desert that I was intrigued by this. So when I got to Syria, after spending a time in Aleppo, which was used to be a beautiful city, I wrote down and went and looked for Palmyra. And when I got there, I was just amazed. And I spent almost a week there. And on the second last day, having ridden through all the ruins and taken so many thousands of photographs and visited the tombs and met some interesting people, I was going to be leaving the next day, and I was writing up my final blog, looked out of the window, and I saw 2 Europeans standing looking at my bike. And I hadn't seen Europeans for probably about 6 weeks at this point. So you'll appreciate I banged on the window and gestured for them to come inside. And they sat down and we got chatting. And they were going on to Egypt. We rode through the ruins for a day or two. Then I left them. We rode for a while, and then they went down to Jordan, and I went to Lebanon. And we stayed in touch. And unbeknownst to me, the week before they met me in Palmyra, they'd actually been in Cappadocia. And they'd stayed at a hotel.
In Turkey. Cappadocia in Turkey.
Exactly. And they had stayed at a hotel, which Patricia happened to be staying at, and they had a quick breakfast together.
So let's just contact your future wife is at a hotel who met this Dutch couple. But
No, it's the Canadian couple. This is Trevor and Chantal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was unbeknownst to me. So anyway, we parted ways, and they went their way, and I went my way, and we met in Cambodia. No, not in Cambodia, in Laos. About 6 months later, I was riding through Southeast Asia by then, and they were also in Asia. They were in India, and they chased after me and eventually caught up to me in Laos. We rode together through Southeast Asia for a few weeks. And at the end of it all, we were down in Malaysia. They were leaving to go to Australia, and I wanted to get to the southern point of Asia, which is on the island, the Indonesian chain of islands. And so I wasn't going to follow their route. And we said our goodbyes. And when they heard I was going to Bali, they mentioned that they'd met someone in Turkey that now worked in Bali. And as you know, you always pass on information about people in the countries you hopefully going to. And so, in case you need a good lawyer to get out of jail or something, at least you can contact a local person and feel like you have someone that's on your side. So they gave me the email address of this lady that was working in Bali. They didn't tell me anything about her, apart from that she was a yoga teacher and she worked at a hotel resort or a wellness resort. And I remember sending an email to her saying that I'm coming into Bali, and I'm friends of Trevor and Shanti Wilson, and they said I should say hi, and if you got time for a cup of coffee, maybe we could get together. So there was just a plan to ride. Bali is a fairly small island, as you know, and you could ride across it.
Yeah. And
so
she was in India at this point, which is
I had no intentions of staying there at all. But in the first week that I was there getting my motorcycle out of the airport, I really did start enjoying life in Bali and the people. And Patricia had written back to me and said, yes, you're welcome. You can come and meet me. And but I'm actually going to be here just for a day or two, and then I'm going to attend an interview in the Caribbean for the same hotel chain that she worked with. So she said, if you'd like to, you could actually stay at my house while I'm away, if you wouldn't mind looking after my dog. And
a free way to get a free dog sitter.
Exactly, free dog sitter for me, free accommodation, and time to work on my blog. And I actually did need a bit of a break, I must say. We'd been writing sort of fairly non-stop for 5 weeks, and hadn't had too much time. That's a picture of me crossing into Cambodia, I think.
Yes. I'm throwing some images back up here while you're talking. So I'm looking at the clock. We got so many stories to tell, but you basically took care of her place for how long?
About a week. I think about a week or 10 days. And when she got back, I remember her saying to me that she was reading my blog while she was on this island in the Caribbean, and realized that we'd only spent literally not even 48 hours in each other's company, and she didn't know that much about me, and she loved to travel too. And I arranged to sort of spend an extra few days there just talking about my trip and getting to know her a little bit. And my very short stay in Bali turned into, I think it was 10 weeks. So obviously we fell in love, and I spent quite a while there until the August. So I'd been there from May right into the end of August, I think.
Wow.
So that was exactly. It's a crazy thing that we've come together. But the fact that Trevor and Shanti met Patricia in Turkey and then met me in Palmyra almost within a week or 10 days of each other. And here we are today. We've been married almost 8 years now. So it's amazing story, actually.
Very nice. So, and she eventually went to somewhere in Mexico, and you flew to meet her there.
She flew to meet me. Yeah, she flew to meet me. Yeah. That was when we were in Encinitas, when I came to visit you in Encinitas.
Oh yeah. So, I'm going to find those images of the wedding, but so this is crazy. This is why I wanted to share this story. So Ronnie, your life is like, you are the happiest guy in the world now. You hopped on a motorcycle just to run away from yourself, but in Bali, as a world of coincidences, and we're going to talk about some of those, that you end up meeting this woman because somebody gave you her email address back in Cambodia.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was I must actually credit this.
Chantel and the Canadian couple didn't mention Patricia when you were in Palmyra, though, right?
No, not at all. And
Not at
didn't mention her until they were leaving for Australia. Months and months later. So literally, that was it. It was just very serendipitous. And I think what is also important is actually in the weeks leading up to me saying goodbye and to Chantel and Trevor. I mean, Chantel is an amazing woman, and I must say that we were in Bangkok, and I'll never forget this. We were in Bangkok, and I'd had a very difficult time. I was estranged from my children. I hadn't heard from them for a long time, and that was really tough on me. And tough for all of us, obviously, but still. Whenever I wrote to them, I was obviously saddened by the whole thing. And I remember her one day just putting her arms around me and saying, "It's time for you to forgive yourself and move on." And there were lots of tears shed. And I must say, from that moment onward, it was almost like stepping out of the skin. And I'd gone from being a fairly just goal-driven person of just getting from A to B to actually stopping and thinking and smelling the roses and just seeing life around me. So I must credit her with opening my eyes to possibilities, firstly. And then a week later, or 2 weeks later, suddenly there was Patricia. And but if it hadn't been for Chantel, I must say that I would have had a different outlook on meeting Patricia. I would have probably not agreed to look after a dog.
Yeah, it sounds like it was spontaneous intervention that she.
Absolutely.
And that I think that's the magic, the transformation that took place in your life. And who knows where these.
And I must also credit my wife and Patricia, because at that point, I was just so head over heels that I actually wanted to. Well, I could have stopped my trip. I was prepared to ship the bike back to South Africa and call it quits. I mean, I'd been on the road for 18 months already, so I'd been away a long time, and I was in 70, 80 countries by then. So I'd achieved a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest. But to her credit, she refused to let me stop, and she said, "No, you've got to finish this thing. You've started it, and you've got to get it finished. And I'll see you at the end of this." And we basically, I think we bought each other sort of rings that we each wore until we got married, and we just basically agreed that at the end of this ride we would get together and get married. So that's what we did. I left there in August and continued my ride around the world. Went through Australia and down into South America, and from time to time we made a bargain that we wouldn't stay away from each other for more than 90 days. 3 months, that was our tops.
90 days.
So whenever the 90 days came up, I had to look for a place to park the bike and find an airport.
Okay, so she left Bali eventually, and then ended up working at a resort in the Caribbean, in the Turks and Caicos, right? I was just showing that image.
Yeah.
And it's here we have to share the story that it was one of those 90-day incidences. So you fly to the Turks and Caicos, not a bad place to go. Well, she is doing her. She's a yoga instructor. I mean, what?
No. She's actually looking after and running the spa, which is it's one of the biggest spas in the Caribbean.
Okay.
A staff of 30 odd people. So it was quite a top
big
job.
Responsibility. Yeah. And you're walking on the beach. You shared this story with me years ago. You're walking on the beach, and what happens? Who do you run into? This.
Well, it's what I see in the beach, but you've got to go back a little bit. This island, I'd been there. This is the second time, and the second time I was there was after we got married, actually, and I spent a few weeks there. But I had flown there and been there before on one of my 90-day trips. Anyway, this island is there are quite a few celebrities who have homes on that island. Donna Karen and Chrissy Brinkley and Billy Joel have a home there, and one Bruce Willis. But and I can't remember exactly how this all took place, to be honest with you, because it is like almost a decade ago. But anyway, I think Patricia actually spoke to his wife, Emma. They actually got married on Parakeet, and must have told her about the fact that she'd just been recently married and who she was married to. And I think this thing took off from there. But saw Bruce Willis on the beach. walking on the beach one day, and I think even Doran Carroll was involved in some way about this and saying, we have to make a movie and Bruce Willis has to play you. And it's going to be the male version of Eat, Pray, Love. And so yeah, the thought of that happened. And Bruce, if you're watching, I'm still waiting for that call. But the idea was, we both short of a bit of hair, and Bruce is a motorcyclist, as you know. I think he rides Harleys though. But he was going to be the perfect person to play my role and ride around the world and find love in Bali, just like Julia Roberts did. Pray, love.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go back in time. So you're happily married, but before that, you even had this encounter. You and I had been emailing back and forth about the roads in Ethiopia and in Sudan. So we're going to go and take our audience here back to Africa. And I don't think there's many people here who have ever been to Sudan. Particularly Americans, because it's almost impossible to get a visa. I managed to go there, and it was at a time when the road, the road to Egypt, up to Lake Nasser, was all sand along the Nile. They call it the Nile Road, and famously by Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman in their Long Way Down series, they kept dumping their bikes in the sand. But by the time you got there, the Chinese had already paid for it to get paved. But somehow, though, before you got to that road, you made a wrong turn. And tell us that story, because this and if you guys, if our audience could stay around for a few minutes longer, we'll wrap up soon. I would love to have Ronnie tell a few more of these little stories, and we'll wrap up hopefully in 10 minutes. We might run 10 minutes late. Go ahead, and we'll bring Ronnie back because there's got to be a part 2. This thing goes on. You're in Sudan. What happens?
Well, I've been faithfully following the GPS and that little purple line that shows you where to go, and it hadn't let me down until that point. But I came out of Ethiopia, and after a long, sweaty time at the border post, I headed for the nearest town, which was Gadaref. And the road was new, as you say. The Chinese had built it, but I got to a point where it made a 90-degree turn to the left, but my GPS showed me I should keep going straight. And I looked at this tarred road that went off, and I thought, well, this can't be right. But there was a dirt track in front of me, and in the distance, when I say the distance, I'm really far away on the horizon, I could see buildings, and I thought that was probably Gadaref. And so I decided to follow the purple line rather than follow the tar road. And I went off road, and I was riding along in what was literally a moonscape. And far ahead of me, I saw what I thought was a rock from a distance, but as I got closer, I saw it was someone sitting down under a blanket. And I thought it must be a shepherd, although there were no sheep around. And what this guy was doing out there, I have no idea. But anyway, as I drew close, I slowed down so that I wouldn't kick dust up in his face. And I was standing up on the pegs because it was a dirt road. And as I got probably about 10 meters away, he whipped this blanket out and away from him, and he pulled out an AK-47, a Kalashnikov machine gun. And I obviously came to a pretty quick halt and set the bike down, and he only said one thing to me, and he just said money. And he had this machine gun pointed at me, and he came up to me and had his hand really close to me saying money.
And about how old did you say? How?
He was a teenager. I reckon he was probably about 15 or 16 years old. And obviously I was fearful, but the fact is I was hot and sweaty. I had a hot time at the border, and I was at that point on my trip, it was early days, and I was just still fairly angry at the cards that I'd been dealt. And I just refused. I actually turned the bike off, and I unzipped my jacket, and I opened my jacket, and I said, I was speaking to him, although he didn't understand me, I'm sure. I said to him, you're going to have to shoot me. And I said, and when you shoot me, you better make sure you get me first time. Anyway, he just stood, and he kept saying money and shaking the rifle at me. And I just ignored him, and then I opened my bar bag, and I took out a little sweet. I had these sort of glass lozenge sweets, various flavors. And I put one in my mouth, and I put the paper back in, and I closed the bar bag, and I sat there with my arms folded, looking at him and sucking on the sweet. And his eyes kept going from my eyes to my mouth and back. And eventually, I sort of sign language, I pointed to my mouth, and I said to him, "You want one of these?" And he sort of understood, and he shook his head yes. And I opened the bar bag and I held one out to him, but I sort of kept it close to me, hoping he would get close enough so I could grab the barrel of the gun and whack him with it. But he didn't get that close. He put his hand out and I gave it to him, and he took a step backwards and off to the side, luckily, which allowed me to be able to get past him eventually. And he opened the sweet, put it into his mouth, and he kept taking it out. It was a pink one, a watermelon flavor, I'll never forget. And he stood there sucking on it, and I eventually thought his mind's off the issue now of money. And I tapped my watch and pointed at the sun and said, it's getting late now, I've got to go. And I pressed the starter button, put the bike in gear, and rode gingerly around him, and sort of crouched down, just waiting for a bullet in the back. But he never ever fired a shot. The last vision I have of him in my side mirrors was still taking the sweet out of his mouth and putting it back in. And that was, I rode into Gaddafi, and that was my entry into Sudan.
Wow. That's a happy ending, for sure. A watermelon sweet for sure.
I think when you ride out alone, you expect you're not going to ride around the world and do 100,000 miles and not run into some kind of problem. But for the most part, people are wonderful, as you know.
Well, I always say, if you look for what's wrong, you're going to find it. But if you look for what's right, you're going to find that. And that it really is part of the attitude that, you need to take. And one of the big things, I do a lot of speaking, and I get lots of questions. And by the way, we're going to take some questions and then we'll lock this down. We'll go about 6 minutes more. If some people want to start showing some questions, Ronnie will be happy, or I will. But the thing I was going to say is that when people ask me what is the most important thing I packed with me, I have people sometimes say, "Did you bring a weapon?" I'm like, "Wow, I didn't bring a weapon." Oh yeah, wait, I did actually. I did bring a weapon, and Ronnie knows exactly what it is. And that weapon is a smile, and it's the most disarming. It'll put anything down. And I think that worked for you there. And the other question is that what else did you pack? And I said, well, it's not about things, but it is patience, and patience is the most important thing. Once you lose your expectations of anything, you start to have a much better experience. And I think that intervention, Ronnie.
One thing I must interject here. One thing I learned from you, Alan, on our trip, and it stood me in great stead the rest of my on my journey around the world, was whenever we had to deal with officialdom. You were always smiling and joking and laughing and happy. And you and I did that thing where we used to get to the border, and actually it was more you than I, but I adopted it, where we'd get to the border and we'd be delighted to be there and show every official that, almost as if this was the end point of our journey. This is what it was all about, getting to Zambia or getting to Malawi. And I did that so many times where I'd get to the border and I'd jump off my bike and say, Uganda, I'm here. And the officials would swarm around me and shake my hand.
Cheering.
It was always like, this is the end. This is the terminus of my journey. My whole life, I wanted to get to Uganda. And I did that with every country. And it always brought a smile, and it always brought the officials around me and took me to the front of queues, even though I didn't want to, but they always forced me to the front of the queue. And it was great. So you're right. A smile and a laugh and a joke is always disarming, and it's the best way to get through to officialdom, and also, keeps your own spirits up. Yeah, that is when you almost went into the Cambio to change money. I'm not sure if you could walk any closer.
Yeah. If that door was a little bit wider, I would have gone right in the room, right?
I'm sure you would have.
Yeah. So let's just let's take that off of there for a second. I want to go back to the chat and see if we've got. I accidentally went off, so I lost a lot of the chat. Do you guys see the chat there in yours, Ronnie? Is there any questions there? I'm going to let you go ahead and read those questions if there are. If not, I'm going to.
There's a question from Rion. What's the real cost of a round the world trip? Look, I don't know what it would be today, but my round the world trip cost me about 850,000 rand for the 4 years that I was away, or three and a half years that I was away. So that's what it cost me. And I have detail of every single cent I spent, believe it or not. Alan will tell you when it comes to spreadsheets.
Yeah.
The king of spreadsheets.
So while we're on that subject, let's talk about blogging. I know the blog is because the technology has changed, but motogypsybiker.com.
That's right. My blog is motogypsybiker.com, MOTO, not motor with an R, it's MOTO. And you can read up everything on my trip there. There's about 900 odd blogs, entries, and it takes you from the beginning, from the planning stage right through to the last blog is actually when I arrived back in South Africa. I haven't written on my blog since then, and there's a lot of things that I wanted to write. I just haven't had the opportunity or the right kind of frame of mind to write. But
But you when I was traveling, I was religiously blogging almost every day, and you began writing, or had you been writing all along even before you met me? I kind of forget this.
No, I wrote about our trip, but before that, I can't really say that I wrote. I enjoy reading and writing, but I didn't write anything that's worth talking about. But my ride around the world, I think I told you this, it felt like a ride around the world eventually.
Oh, right, right. Because you were
it was a ride around the world, because I would ride for sort of 2 or 3 days, and then I'd stop for 2 days and write about what I did in the last couple of days, and then move on again.
Yeah. This is the wedding pictures.
I clean up quite nicely, don't I, Alan?
Yeah, you look pretty good there, huh? Darn.
Handsome, and the big fella in the back there was my best man. Yeah.
Yeah. You did keep track. I wanted to bring this this slide up because you clearly took. I mean, people ask me how much it costs. I still hardly could come up with that number because I didn't keep a spreadsheet all along, but you did. And if you go to the next slide here for that person who was asking how much, Brianna, how much it cost. That's in rand, which is the South African currency, and you can see. And the trip was 2010 to 20. What was the date?
That's right. Brian is asking. Yeah, I left in February 2010, and I got home in October 2013.
Yeah, so nearly 4 years.
Yeah,
nearly 4 years. Wow.
There was a break in between. I mean, I rode in the USA. After we got married, I rode in the USA. I've ridden in 46 of the US states, so a couple still to do. But I could have taken 6 years, to be quite honest. 4 years, I didn't stop and talk as much as you would have. Yeah. In fact, if we were running together, we'd still be out there.
We'd probably still be out there. So my motorcycle right now. This the bike that I met you on, the one that I almost rode into the border post there, is sitting in a garage in Athens, Greece right now. And I was due to go back to Greece and continue travels this summer. But where is the big fella? By the way, that's what Ronnie calls his. My bike's called Doc. Where is the big fella?
The big fella is actually about 10 meters from where I'm sitting right now. But unfortunately, it's in a sad state of disrepair. The year before last, we were living in a game reserve in the Sabi Sands, and we had a massive windstorm, and a truly big tree. When I say a big tree, one that I couldn't get my arms around, fell onto the garage where the big fella was parked on a trailer and smashed the bike and trailer into the ground. And unfortunately, it's going to take an awful lot of money to repair it. I took the insurance payout, and the big fella's sitting on a trailer as we speak. And I'm not quite sure if I could resurrect him. I'd love to be honest with you, but it is going to cost an awful lot of money. I'd probably cheaper to buy a new one, but nothing could replace the big fella. That's for sure.
So I guess Patricia's put up here. Ronnie Borrageiro is also, it's Ronnie Borrageiro or Moto Gypsy Biker to read. It is a great read. It goes way back. Some of the photos and some of the posts aren't populating now. I'm going to work with Ronnie on that. Check out his blog. Ronnie, I just poured a little bit more because we're going to wind this down and people got to get back to their lives. This is life in lockdown. Will you come back and continue this with us?
I'd be honored to. I'd be happy to. And it's been a pleasure and honor being with you.
Because there's tons of slides I didn't share here. But what a great story. I am so happy, and I love you and Patricia, and I can't wait till I can make it to South Africa in the real world, and you get back here, and I can see your new motorcycle.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to seeing you, whether it's here or there. And look forward to, if you want to do this again next week, I'm sure I can make the time.
Okay, we'll do it. I've got guests lined up for, we're still coordinating schedules. So the next the next live stream webcast will happen next Monday. I'm not sure if it'll be exactly at 2 again, but I will send out everybody that's been here. We will have more exciting people to join us. Speakers, travel hosts, motorcyclists, everybody. And Ronnie, we got to get you back maybe next week or the week after for sure. And in the meanwhile, thank you all for tuning in. You'll get a link. You can watch this again for those of you who missed part of it. And if you have other questions, send it in. Thank you. Love all you guys. Big hugs. I know we're not supposed to hug today, but I want to give everybody that tuned us in, Ronnie, especially you.
We'll do a virtual hug, everybody. Thank you very much for having me, and thanks to everybody. And don't be afraid to travel. Travel just opens the mind, and it's the greatest pastime.
It is the greatest pastime. Okay, thank you guys again. I know somebody said they got the same cat tree as I had, and I'm sorry my cats didn't make a guest appearance. I don't know why that is. Usually they would, especially since I have some food and cheese in here. But anyway, this is closing up the Journey's premiere inaugural. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank all of you there. I love you guys. I love everyone out there. Appreciate you from my heart.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Take it easy.
Ronnie, you're great.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been the Journey's Webcast inaugural episode. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tune us in every Monday. The time will change depending on where we are in the world. Special thanks out to Ronnie and all for you for tuning in. Tune to journeyswebcast.com for a complete schedule. Thanks again.